Welcome, Katie Hurley. I'm so excited to have a chance to talk to you today about your wonderful new book, which I need and my family needs so much, A Year of Positive Thinking for Teens. Those of you who are regulars know Katie. Katie Hurley is a child and adolescent psychotherapist, writer, speaker, and author of many wonderful books, including No More Mean Girls, The Happy Kid Handbook, and The Depression Workbook for Teens. So Katie, tell us, what were you hoping to achieve with A Year of Positive Thinking for Teens? And did you time it to come out in the middle of a pandemic when we need it so desperately?
Here's what's so weird. No, when my publisher asked me to do this, I sort of hemmed and hawed about it. And it was about 3 weeks before Los Angeles, where I live, shut down. And I kept thinking, I don't know, will teenagers want this? Will they read it? You know, you go back and forth. I really love teenagers. I work with them a lot. I want to help them as much as I can, but it kind of was on the fence and I don't really know why. And then all of a sudden I said, you know what, I'm just going to do it. This is my thing. I love positive thinking. I love teenagers. Why would I do it? So I did it. And then 3 weeks later, right as I started writing the first page, Los Angeles went into lockdown supposedly for 2 weeks, which turned into months and months and months. And so the timing is just, you know, what it is. It just happened to come out during the pandemic, but I am hopeful that it will help some of these teenagers through this fall and uncertain winter that's kind of creeping up on us. And it's also, it's not even just the pandemic, it's the election and social media and just so much right now. I feel like everything's on overload and teenagers are so privy to so much stuff right now. It's a lot to manage.
Yeah. And what are you here as a clinician? I know you're always talking with teenagers and young people. What are you hearing from teens and adolescents about what's hard right now?
What's hard right now is some kids are doing hybrid, some are still fully home. My own 2 kids are learning from home still completely. And, you know, they don't necessarily mind the learning part of it. Some parts of it are okay, but they really miss just being in the classroom. In the last couple of weeks, I've had 3 or 4 teenagers say to me, you know, it's just not the same when the teacher isn't wandering around the room and like suddenly he or she's over your shoulder. And one of them even said, like, sometimes that makes you nervous because you're like, oh no, was I spacing out or was I doing my work? Except also it's that comfort of the person is always there. And on Zoom or Google Meets, Google Hangouts, however they're connecting virtually, it's not the same relationship building. They're having trouble building the trust. This has been particularly hard for 6th graders, you know, new middle schoolers, and 9th graders, new high schoolers, because they're trying to build these relationships. They don't know the teachers, and it's really hard to get to know them in a Zoom room with 35, 36 other people at the same time.
Yeah, what I see in various teens who may or may not be living with me is that the things like asking for help, which in person were so much just like very casual, hang after class for a minute or, you know, say something in passing, are like this huge obstacle, like writing an email to the teacher to ask for help. And to the extent of literally like cannot do it.
Yeah. And, you know, it's funny because in the spring, everybody went into crisis learning mode. So it was like, throw everything at the wall and see what works, right? See what sticks. And it was kind of a wash. But then everybody got hip to breakout rooms over the summer. And so that's like the new jam for all the teachers, and the kids can't stand it because they're so awkward. No one wants to talk. And then the teacher just like pops in and out like a ghost at random without any warning and is like, you're not talking. Why isn't anyone talking? And it's just it's so awkward.
Thank you. That's so validating.
Well, I always say to my teens, like, I don't like it as an adult. I definitely wouldn't like it at 15, 16.
Yeah, it's funny actually. My kid's school is also doing breakout room like type things for parents, and it makes me feel like I'm back in high school where you're like, hi, I'm Catherine,
Katie Kangaroo. Yeah,
exactly.
It's the worst.
That's so funny. Yeah, well, that's very validating to hear, and hopefully there will be another iteration and you know, they'll improve and find a better way to kind of build that connection.
They're trying their best. We know this.
So I just wanted to read today's entry from your book.
Hey, I don't even know what it is. This is exciting.
Because it really resonated with me as I was looking at it this morning. 3 questions. Learning to live your life through the lens of positive thinking takes time. You might not always know what the right choice is in the moment. Asking yourself the following questions can help. Does that sound familiar?
Yes.
Does
I'm
this
thinking I
help
need this
me
today.
reach my goals? Yes. Am I experiencing positive emotions? And is this something I feel passionate about? And to me, that just speaks to what I'm always trying to get my own
Yeah.
kids and, kids I speak to really tune into themselves.
Yeah.
So I don't know if that brings up anything for you that you would share with, teens or parents of teens.
It actually is like, I'm so glad you just read that to me because I hadn't looked today to see what today's entry was. Because if you haven't seen the book yet, it's broken up day by day and you can flip around. You don't have to read it in order, but it is kind of fun to see what the daily entry is. But I have all these decisions I'm trying to make for my own career and myself. So that actually just put that back in my head. Does this give me joy? Yes. Does this help me reach my goals? Yes. Anyway, but with teenagers, parents often will say to me, he or she just can't make any decisions. They can't make decisions. They're the worst at making decisions. And I don't think teenagers have ever been great at decision making because there's so much information. I think back to my own teen years, and I don't think I was great at making decisions. I mean, I kind of would, go with the wind sometimes and then overthink to a point of like it was debilitating other times. And I'm prone to doing that anyway, even as an adult. But I see a lot of teens that just feel like their whole lives have to be planned now. So they get stuck. It's sticky thinking. They're always stuck in, well, I've always played volleyball, so that's what I do. And that's my thing. And I have to keep doing that thing. Or, well, everyone tells me I'm a good writer, so what I should do is write all the time and only do that thing. And to a point where they burn out. And sometimes they're doing things that they're not passionate about or they don't even particularly like because the adults around them keep telling them that they're good at it and that this is a thing that could be their future. And so I talk to teens about this a lot and I ask them to really be introspective and think about these questions because they have to get in touch with who they are. If we don't know who we are, none of the rest of it matters. I mean, that's kind of the bottom line. And it's a shame how many people get to adulthood and don't know who they are or what they're passionate about. I was lucky to have parents who, when I declared at 15, I want to be a therapist, I want to help other kids and teens. And they were like, what's that? I mean, it was 1990 something, people didn't go to therapists so much then. But they were like, okay, let's learn. Let's figure this out. How do we get you there? What do you need? How do we do this? And they helped me find internships and interesting things so that I could really learn about it before I committed to anything. But so many people don't have that kind of support. So I'm always asking teens to really take that time to just think about it. What do you get from this? Is this helping you reach some goals that you have? Also, it's okay if your goals change. It's okay if your goal from 9 to 15 was volleyball. And then all of a sudden one morning you wake up and you say, you know what? I want to be a nurse, or, I want to be an environmentalist, or I want to be a scientist. I mean, there's so many things to be. I think we do this thing where we are constantly saying, oh, you're so good at this. You're so good at this. This is your jam. You've got it all figured out. But who could put a cap on passion and, what we're good at age 15, 16. So I just try to help kids work through what are all their different interests and feelings and what does that evoke for them. And when they do that, they start to realize this is the direction I want to go in, or this is how I make choices for myself.
Yeah. I love that. It's so funny. As you're talking, I realized that we just watched High School Musical over the weekend, and that's such a theme of that like people are saying, you're good at basketball, why would you be in the musical? Or you're a good at, you're academic, and sort of it really illustrates how much we box kids in as like how we see them or how they see themselves. So
we do. And it starts young, it starts younger and younger now than it even used to. And it's such a weird, strange thing we do, right? Because it comes from a good place because we're like, hey, look at you. You're so good at this.
Yeah.
Like you can memorize facts. You should be on Jeopardy,
Right.
It's like we have all these ideas and we're trying to be positive. We're trying to lift them up. But sometimes we focus so much on those things that we forget that humans are complicated, and that's good. It's good to be complicated.
Yeah. And we can change our minds and then we can change it back. you know?
Exactly. Yeah.
So I really love the book and how it's structured. It's just such a wonderful, you
Yeah.
know, thick enough to be meaty, but also not intimidating. Um, and I'm wondering if you could sort of sum up, you know, if you had a top three, like the three most important things that you would like teenagers to know, or pieces of advice for them, you know, what would your top three be?
Well, I would say the number one thing I say to teenagers over and over and over again, because they need to hear things on repeat, is it gets better. You know, sometimes when it feels like you have a string of bad luck or nothing is turning out the way that you hoped it would, no matter how hard you try, we get stuck into negative thinking. And it makes sense, right? Because sometimes we try and we try and we try and things just don't go as planned. And that can happen a lot in the teenage years. And then it just feels like I'm not good at anything. Nothing's working. Everything I do is a failure. This is too hard. I'll never be good at this. I mean,
Yeah.
it's so easy to get into that kind of a mindset. It happens to adults too. So, you know, I have my teenagers even just design little sticky notes or whatever that say it gets better and put it all over their house because
Mm-hmm.
we all need that reminder. It gets better.
Yeah.
The second thing is we can take control of our own thinking. So negative thinking is sticky thinking because it's loud and intrusive. So when our brains get into the place where our brain starts saying, you know, you're not good at this. No, you're not as good as that other person, or, you know, you're only this good. We just get into a pattern, and it's, you know, it's circular, and it goes and it goes and it spins faster and faster. It feels very overwhelming. It can make us feel sort of panicky. It can make us feel totally overwhelmed and depressed, but we can take charge of that. We can get out of that kind of thinking. And the first step to doing that, and everybody gets this wrong about positive thinking. And so what we do is we yell out these platitudes like think positive and, be your best self and, have a great day and you can
Right.
keep trying. And all that's empty, right? Those are all empty phrases. The first step towards being positive is actually getting in touch with the negative and owning it and listening to it.
Mm.
So we have to hear those thoughts. We can't sweep them away. We can't bat them away. We have to hear them. We have to make peace with them. We have to say to ourselves, what is that thought really trying to tell me? And then we ground ourselves and say, well, why isn't that true? Let's pick that thought apart. What's wrong with that thought? Why isn't that true? And then we can replace it with empowering thoughts. I tend to say, instead of saying positive thinking, think empowering
Yeah.
thinking. I
Yeah.
can do this. Here's why I'm capable. Here's why I have friends. This is what people like about me. This is what I bring to the table. So that's kind of the second thing is don't be afraid of the negative thoughts. Own them, listen to them, make peace with them. That's how we work through it. And then the third thing I would say is teens go through a lot of ups and downs, particularly with friends. Surround yourself with people who choose to be positive and choose to cheer one another on, because
Yeah.
life's hard. But
Yeah.
when you surround yourself with a group of cheerleaders, you're going to feel better and you're going to cheer them on. And that's going to make you feel better and them feel better. And everybody's going to kind of work through the hard stuff together.
I like that. Yeah, when I first met my husband, I had a couple of negative thinking friends, and he was like, "Why are you always just stuck
Yeah.
in these, cycles of complaining, right?"
Yeah.
So, and it's
It
interesting
happens.
also what you said about tuning into the negative. Sometimes I think about that with anger, like when we get really unreasonably angry about something,
Mhm.
it points us to something we really care about. So you can't
That's
just
true.
like ignore it and say like, oh, I'm not going to feel that way. You say like, okay, why is this so powerful for me? It must say something about my values or something about my goals or something about how I want to be treated, right?
Yeah.
All those
Yeah. When we
important.
take the time to examine our thoughts, we learn so much about ourselves and where we are headed and who we are.
Great. And what about for parents? And this is, of course, as the parent of teens myself, I'm always looking for more advice on this stage. What three sort of golden nuggets would you have for parents? Whether it's, getting out of the way or whatever else we should be
Yeah.
doing right now.
Isn't it hard? It's such a strange parenting flip, I think. We go from them wanting us around all the time and us sort of being the experts in everything and the fixers of everything to like, step
Yep.
back. And it's like that.
Yeah.
So, and I'm capable and I can do, and they are, they still need support, but they're very capable. So it's just, it's hard. I always tell parents, follow the 80-20 rule. So listen more than you speak, listen 80%, speak 20%. Super hard, easier to say than to do. And even for me, I mean, I'm a therapist, so I'm full of great ideas for my 13-year-old. Not all my ideas are her favorite ideas, but I feel like I have good ideas. So it's hard to just sit and listen. That's the single most important thing we can do for our teens. And they tell me this all the time. If my parents would listen, I would talk to them more. But if I talk to them, they're going to tell me what to do. They're going to say, I can't hang out with this person anymore. They're going to take away my phone or my computer or whatever else. So they're afraid. They're afraid of how the conversations are going to go. So they just keep it all inside until they end up on my couch because they're so anxious or they're so depressed.
Yeah.
That's not what we want. And it's certainly not what any parents want. I mean, parents always tell me, but I try so hard to be supportive. And I believe that. I think we all come from a good place, especially when we're trying to problem solve. We just have to learn how to be better just listeners, just listening for the sake of listening. Number 2 is empathize. It's easy to forget what the teen years are like. So whatever you need to do, go to the photo albums, remember the bad haircuts, whatever you need to do to like transport yourself back to that time. It's hard. It's hard to be a teen girl. It's hard to be a teen boy. It's hard to be LGBTQ. It's hard to be trans. It's hard to be a person of color. And, it's so hard to be a teenager, to be any teenager right now. There's so much, and they're up against so much. This is a generation of teenagers who are very socially conscious. They really are fighting hard for social justice a lot of the time. Some of the messages they find online are confusing. They don't always know where to look. Sometimes they end up in the wrong direction. That's okay. They're going to make mistakes. That's okay. So empathize with them. Talk about how this is hard. How does everything affect you? I get it. It feels hard for me. It must feel really hard for you. Just simply saying to them like, sounds like you've had a really hard day is a conversation starter because it acknowledges that they're going through something and that something feels like a lot right now. So empathize is number 2. And then I guess number 3, what I would say is teens are notorious for pushing us away when they need us the most. So don't take it personally and do whatever you have to do to connect. I found myself telling a dad this week, you have a 13-year-old daughter who likes to play video games. Play video games. It doesn't matter if you don't like them or you think that they're draining her brain. Play them because that's where she is. That's how you can connect. That's how you start a relationship. So we have to be willing to be rejected and keep trying. That's our job. I mean, sometimes we're going to get rejected and it hurts. Our job is to keep trying and keep connecting and keep letting them know that we're here for them no matter what.
Yeah. Okay. Things I know, but always need to hear more of, and especially the listening, it's so hard. I sort of think sometimes, I was trained as a physicist, and there's this principle in physics that when you look at an object, it influences that object because of the light. And it's sort of the same with teenagers. Like as the parent, like you cannot say things that anyone else could say because it just has such this outsized influence of like they hear criticism that's not intended, or maybe it was there and you didn't realize it.
That's true. I know. Voice tone becomes so important in the teenage years. And when we feel, I know as parents, like sometimes when we feel hurt, we get a little maybe sarcastic or passive aggressive under our breath and stuff. And we have to really check ourselves because they wear a tough exterior, but they're very sensitive underneath that layer. So it's just important to really check ourselves and, apologize when we're going to make mistakes too. Everybody does. We're all human. So owning it and apologizing helps us hit the reset.
Great. Well, this is such a wonderful book. Highly recommended. There's 2 happy teens reading it now here. Yay! And I don't know if there's anything else that you wanted to share. I was going to ask you what people get wrong about positive thinking, but you sort of touched on that. I don't know if there's any sort of closing thoughts that you have that you wanted to share before we say goodbye.
Well, I think one thing that I see with people all the time, adults and kids, is they'll say, I tried it and it didn't work. And what they mean is they tried it once, they tried to reframe their thoughts once or twice, it didn't feel like it stuck, and so they move on. To really be a positive thinker is to fail a lot of times along the way, and to learn little bits each time that you fail. It's like anything else, it's a muscle, it takes time to build. And tapping into mindfulness will really help you get there. So my teens all love the Calm app, so I suggest it all the time. Use it when you're calm, don't wait till you're upset. Use it when you're calm, use it 3-4 times a day. Just really learn how to do mindfulness and combine that with positive reframing and learning how to, think about your future in a positive way, and you'll get there faster.
Great.
There are no quick fixes.
No, well, that's also validating that, it's not that it's me. It's just that it's hard.
It's hard. Yeah, it's just that it's hard.
Well, thank you so much, Katie Hurley, author of A Year of Positive Thinking for Teens. Highly recommend. Amazing book for teens. And I'm using some of the tips myself. So
I am too.
Yes. Thank you so much, Katie. Always so
Thank you for having me.
To you. Okay.
Okay. Bye.